The strike by the resident doctors is biting hard, even as it enters its 24th day. What was supposed to be a possible end to the strike at the meeting between the federal government and the striking National Association of Resident Doctors ended in a deadlock days ago as the body refused to sign the new Memorandum of Action brokered by its parent body, the Nigerian Medical Association. Two other medical bodies appended their signatures to the new MoU, but only NARD declined assent owing to what it called an undisclosed clause, while insisting that the leadership has to get the nod of members before the document could be signed. But the National Industrial Court has ordered the striking members of the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors to resume work immediately. It also adjourned the matter until the 15th of September 2021. A social commentator, Bolaoba, is in the studio with me to look into this matter this morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Always a pleasure to be on your side.
Now, for even that court injunction, so to speak, or that statement from the court which said that talked about stay of action, there are persons who are interpreting it differently. The NAD is interpreting it as they are to continue the strike, but the federal government is saying that what the government said is that they should return to work. But let's get
what the court said.
Yes, what the court said is that let them get back to work. But let's get your sense of how this issue has been going back and forth with the federal government and the Association of Resident Doctors. The strike began August the 2nd, and before then the doctors were saying that they had given the federal government 117 days to look into the issues they had placed with the government earlier on in the year. And then afterwards they had several meetings which ended in a deadlock. And then the government now dragged the doctors to the industrial court, where we saw what came out yesterday. From your perception, because what the resident doctors are saying is what they want from government is just action. And they are also saying government is being insincere. What is the perception you're getting from how this is going back and forth?
The perception I have is quite unfortunate and quite negative of the government. We tend to have characters in government who go to sign agreements that they know they will likely not honor. What is the worth of an agreement when chieftains of state put their signatures on paper and they know? In fact, in many respects, it is one of the reasons why our society is the way it is now. Forget about the National Association of Resident Doctors. You want to talk about ASU?
Right.
Has that not become a cyclical, an untoward, undignifying, cyclical phenomenon to the debilitation of our educational system? You want to talk about any other profession? Let's go there. And you see consistently characters in government, chieftains of state, signing agreements that they know they are not going to honor. It's preposterous. No sane society runs like that. When human beings cannot believe. Look, you just finished with a medical doctor and a public commentator, and he says one of the reasons for vaccine hesitancy, the anti-vaxxers in Nigeria are in a peculiar box. In other societies, it's maybe called to rabid partisanship. It may be called to religious beliefs, but in Nigeria, a larger percentage of it is the distrust of government. And it becomes harder for any government that even means well to achieve much when the general perception of the people is in itself not quite connecting with the vision you are casting. So I'm sitting here now taking your question as, you know what, I think it's about time people in government reviewed, about time they came into the realization that some of their modus operandi must change.
I mean, they swore to the people that they will protect their lives and property. That's the essence of any government. And medical, or when we talk about health rather, is a key aspect of that. And we saw what happened during COVID-19 last year. One would have thought that perhaps we learned lessons.
COVID-19 is still on in a very uglier, more ravaging, more debilitating, more virulent way. The Delta variant of it.
Absolutely.
And you know what? This is the time that the government, like the gentleman that I spoke with earlier, did mention, this is the time that the government ought to use its credibility capital to encourage people to do the right thing. And you know what? This issue of, look, these are like the majors and the captains of the medical hierarchy.
Absolutely.
And they command the platoons and the troops. You know, the resident doctors. Resident doctors, many Nigerians watching this morning may not know that resident doctors are actually postgraduate medical students studying to specialize after they've graduated as general practitioners.
Yes.
Now, the body presents a pool of people who actually are the engine room of our retail healthcare system, how government hospitals interface with the members of the general public. These are the people that government, you know, the federal government has signed a number of agreements with.
Over the years, the matter, according to them, has been on for about a decade. To
be honest with you, they've gone on strike in the last 1.5 years. They've gone on strike for about, this is the 4th time, and it's been on the same issue of honor the agreement that you have signed. Look, I'm not saying, look, I'm one who believes that anybody who has been fortunate in Nigeria to have acquired tertiary education owes Nigeria a lot. I am one who believes that once you, especially in medicine, because medical training is one of the most expensive on the face of the earth. If you were to be a graduate, if you were to be a medical doctor, as you are a resident medical doctor practitioner in Nigeria, if you were to swap places and function, say, United States of America or United Kingdom, the debt you'll be owing the government will be enormous. And yet, 99% of those doctors must have graduated on basic scholarship. So they also owe Nigeria to give something back to Nigeria. Because those of us who have attained, those of us who have acquired some modicum of tertiary level education in Nigeria, our lives have been very subsidized. Right. I think it's about time we start telling ourselves. But having said that, when you come into agreement with people, when you say, I will do, please try to do. Even if circumstances are not making you to do, let the party know that you've really tried your best possible. And the optics, this time in our politicking and, polity, the optics are bad. Right. Some major chieftains of state are out there seeking the best of medical treatment, and Nigerians are literally.
And that brings me to the next issue that someone raised yesterday when I spoke with one of our guests, a doctor. He says, because that a majority of those in government go outside of the country to get a second option, that they are not going to pay attention to issues that has to do with health in the country. Do you share the same perception?
Even if I don't want to share the same perception, can you rubbish the logic of the submission? The logic is, too obvious. The highest chieftain of state was out of the country for a number of days or weeks seeking medical treatment. Some of the most pronounced and prominent politicos in the land are seen, in their living rooms, entertaining people outside the shores because they're getting medical treatment. And you know what? The average Nigerian is thinking, why would they care about me when they have viable alternatives? The optics is bad, and it will not only affect the belief of the people in the medical system. In fact, it will affect the general perception of the people about politics and politicians.
There are those who say, because one of the major issues is the fact that a majority of the resident doctors are being owed salaries. And there are those who say that perhaps they should look at engaging those states who are owing doctors instead of waiting on the federal government.
We live in a very dysfunctional federal state, very dysfunctional. And people have to be very careful when they want to give opinions on matters appertaining the relationship between the federal government and the federating units, the states. I'm one who believes that until the facts are well laid before one has to be very careful.
Right.
Look, let me give you a typical example. The Nigerian state has 36, the Nigerian nation has 36 states.
And the Federal Capital Territory.
Let's look at the level of the federation,
right.
the federal entity and the federating units.
Right.
And yet, many people don't know that our judiciary is practically unitary because there's a central body, that controls the appointment and the appointment and the service condition of judges. Now, come to the medical district. You have the NMA, which is the national body, and when the rubber hit the tar, who did the Minister of Health call?
The NMA.
At the behest of the president, he called the NMA, and the NMA said, look, these doctors, the resident doctors, they know how the system works. They know why they are obstinately holding to their position, even when they are superiors, when they are seniors, when they are mentors. The NMA, when it is seemingly inclined to signing or reaching agreement with the government.
So it was a strategic move by the federal government.
Look, the federal government would want to use the element of divide and rule to say, you know what, resident doctors are not only in the employ of the federal government. Some states, go and negotiate, and they know that bifurcation, they know that strategy to send them to different 36 sources would mess up what they're trying to get. So what NAD is doing, and I'm not speaking for them, and I don't know.
You're not a member of the
I'm not a member, but what they're trying to do is, let's obstinately hold on to our position because we've been so browbeaten and battered, wanting this entity to respect an agreement it has entered into, that once you get the principle of decapitation in war, once you get the chief of the army, you've gotten the army. So I think the strategy they are using, NARD, is first the federal government squarely, don't wink, get them to honor this agreement, don't sign any new agreement, and once the states see the tenacity with which we have dealt with the federal government, they will know to honor their own agreements too.
But the federal government is saying that we have signed an agreement with the NMA, so they have to return to work. Where does this leave the whole situation, especially the Nigerian people who are reeling from the whole back and forth from both sides? There are a lot of persons who have died as a result of this issue. Lots of persons. Yeah.
But you know what? We live in a polity where there are no consequences. If you were to live in countries where the rule of law is far more effective, and you have, and the government knows, and even the resident doctors know that through litigations, citizens can get some form of recompense, and that the industry could be shaken to its, to its bone marrows. But we live in a society where those deaths are just, in some other societies, it would even, those deaths would matter as statistics. In Nigeria, and look, I tell people that we don't have a good picture of how COVID-19 is ravaging this society. All you have to do is drive through inner city Lagos, and you see the common tradition of funeral tradition, where you see banners saying "Clinical to high heaven" or "glorious exit," and you see it in a number of houses, and you start wondering, has this become a part of our architectural design now, when you see "glorious exit"? And those are only the landlords, who the owners of the houses could allow their banners to flow. Imagine how many people would have died. And I was telling myself, because that's sometimes the way I think. I was in the vehicle, and I was telling myself, if you see all this in Oshodi and Mushin and some other places, when you are driving around, don't you know? You know, and even you get to hear of one professor here who has gotten the 2 jabs, and like the gentleman rightly stated, irrespective of having gotten the jabs, there is no vaccine that claims to have 100% potent protection. It only, we have variations from around 70-something to 90-something. So it is still incumbent on you watching this money to make sure that there are some non-pharmaceutical measures you have to take, like using face mask, washing your hands, regularly, and stuff like that you need to protect yourself. Because you see, look at how it is now.
So Nigerians have to take responsibility for their health. That's what you're saying.
We do not only have the duty to take responsibility for our health ourselves, we are left in a society where what most responsible governments provide across the world is denied us. So we have doubly the responsibility to not only take good care. Look, I tell people, I'm an employer of labor, you tell your workers, let them remove 2,500 naira a month from your salary to do national health insurance scheme for you, so that when you are sick, but you know what? They will get 2,500 naira. But you know what? Once they are sick, they'll be calling you, okay. Or my wife, you can imagine, I gave them the example of a cleaner. She earns one of the lowest in the company, just less than 40,000 naira she earns. But she pays regularly 2,500. She allows them to deduct it. When she was pregnant and she wanted to give birth, she had complications. National Health Insurance paid 140,000 naira for the cesarean operation that they did for her. And you know what? One would have had to, it would have been the story of Oga Komalebimo, what was talk, some things too, that leadership, apart from those who are in government, those of us in leadership, we also have to instill in our people. Because, look, the greatest enemy of this society is functional ignorance. Indeed, organic ignorance. 2,500 naira from a salary of about 60, 70, 90, some 120. And I had to use the example of a lady that earns 42,000 naira after tax. That allows them to deduct that 2,500 naira. And when she was in complications, medical complications, the money served her well. Sometimes too, those of us watching hold the responsibility to be more responsible as a citizen to yourself first, because in doing that, we will build a good society. Not only about those who are in government. You need to give up on those ones. Sorry about that.
We have to be careful, because as much as we have to take responsibility, we know that government has a role to play.
Oh, yes.
And the people have to learn to hold them to account as it is.
The culture of public administration. This is Bola about talking to you now. Look, ask your producer. I reluctantly have stopped in the last 3 months honoring, invitations to news, media houses because I'm very disillusioned about our governance system now. And you know why? Because even those who are in government now, I have seemingly given up on them because I see a culture, the zeitgeist. That is the spirit of the moment in public. This thing now is that people want to go there to get rich. People are not going there
to serve the people.
To serve anymore. People are not going there to build legacy. People are not going there to transform society. We read about the rulers of this world who took about 30 million people out of poverty in Brazil and yet was convicted for corruption before the Supreme Court in Brazil nullified the conviction. We hear about how China in the last 25-30 years has brought out 700 million out of class poverty, and you see poverty in your society, and you see a government, and you see governments and people in government who don't even have a clue. I'm telling you, they don't have a clue of what should be done, because they think, after all, it's 8 years now. It's whatever you can garner, and put somewhere in the 8 years that matters. I'm beginning to even lose faith in liberal democracy because of the madness I'm seeing in places like America, January 6, United Kingdom, where you have a prime minister who practically lied to end the prime ministership and is running the country aground because the part of me is also there now. And I know that this is not liberal democracy is even making me choke. Maybe countries like Germany, even Germany, maybe countries like Germany and some very few liberal democracies like Taiwan, like South Korea, or this, maybe. But this, especially in Nigeria, this class of politicians, I don't want to be a Jeremiah.
Right. But then some would say that it is the same people with the people that place them there. But now we have a responsibility to begin to hold them to account, don't we? And isn't this a lesson for us to take ahead of the 2023 elections that is coming?
My sister, the political class in Nigeria has used hunger to decimate the ranks of the people. Anybody who you can wave 500 naira to, and that person will forget what will happen to his or her life in the next 5 years. Or what do they call Kingdom of Rising? About God. He's a good God. I'm telling you, humanity has been reduced to a level of debilitating poverty in this part of the world that I was telling a friend of mine that you can kill somebody in Nigeria now for less than 10,000 naira. Just give 10,000 naira to some boy. I'm telling you. So, political class, these ones don't come to politics with ideas anymore. They come to politics using all the extra measures. And some of the extra measures we can't see on TV.
Right.
We can't. Honestly, my sister, let's just rest it.
Right. We'll have to leave the conversation here now and hope for the best that the resident doctors and the federal government have a meeting point such that the Nigerian people can have rest of mind at least when it comes to the issues of healthcare. Thank you so much.
Always a privilege to be
for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.